Welcome to the Training Grounds, a playlist based on the basics of Albion Online. In today's video, we're going to cover how to heal in HCEs and everything you need to know about the healer role. Let's go ahead and take a look at the build. So for the helmet, we're going to want to go ahead and equip the Graveguard helmet. And for the ability you want to select is Sacrifice. It basically takes 15% of your max health and restores 25% of a teammate's, whoever you have selected. And for the passive, you're going to want to select Toughness, which increases your defense. So looking at the chest piece, we want to go ahead and use a Royal Jacket, and for the ability you want the Royal Banner, which creates a little circle around you that increases everyone's cooldown rate by 50% as well as increases their attack speed by 30%. This works for 5 allies up to 7 seconds. For the passive you want to select Quick Thinker, which increases your cooldown rate. For the shoes, you want to go ahead and use the Shoes of Tenacity and use the Blind Spot ability. This makes you go invisible and increases your movement speed by 20% for 1 second. You're going to use this to reset mobs, and you should be spamming this while you're healing to reset any threat that you generate while healing. So let's go ahead and take a look at why this matters. The mobs have a system that determines who they're going to target next, and it's all based off of threat. So how do you generate threat? A DPS, a healer, and tank can all generate threat, and the DPSs do it by attacking, healers do it by healing, and tanks do it when they attack, and they also have a Q ability which generates 100 threat. So basically think about it as a ladder. The top of the ladder is who the mobs will be targeting, and if someone takes the position at top of the ladder, then they're going to be targeted by the mobs. So the ability on the boots basically resets your position on that ladder. So if you're going to pass the tank in threat generation and get the first position to be targeted by the mobs, using these boots will reset you back down to the first position or the second position. I'm not sure exactly by how much, but it resets it, and that's all that is really important. So basically as a healer and any DPS, you should be spamming these boots constantly because you always want to be at the bottom of that ladder. That's why you always see people saying spam F or spam boots, because a lot of times people don't do this at the lower levels and then they start doing higher levels and they end up getting targeted by the mobs and instantly killed, and then sometimes people will blame the tank, which is unfortunate, but this is completely on the healer and DPS to use their boots of tenacity to reset their position on that ladder. Moving on to the passive of the boots, we're going to use Quick Thinker, which is going to increase our cooldown rate. When using the healing meta build, you can either use the Holy Staff or the Hollow Fall Staff. Looking at the Hollow Fall Staff, Generous Heal is the first ability we're going to want to use. Holy Beam is the second, and Desperate Prayer is the third. For the passive, we're going to want to go ahead and equip Adrenaline Driven Charity, which increases our healing cast by 20% for 3 seconds. Moving on to the Hollow Fall Staff, we're going to want to use the same exact abilities. The only thing that changes is your third ability, which is the Divine Intervention. And this one is going to basically just allow you to jump into a crowd of mobs and push them back, or jump on your teammates and end up healing them. I'll go ahead and show you guys the staff abilities once we actually get into some gameplay. So for the offhand, you're going to want to use the Celestial Sensor, which increases your healing cast bonus. And you're going to want to use the Limhurst Cape, which restores 80% of your max energy once you fall under 40% of energy, which is very helpful for healing. I guarantee you'll be burning through energy like crazy, so you're going to need the Limhurst Cape. Obviously, there's going to be a couple different healing builds, like there's off-meta ones as well as a one that's more focused on full support. I definitely recommend using this one that I showed you here because this is the meta and this is the most common and it's the most useful in my opinion. So what is the job of the healer? Obviously, it's to heal, but more specifically, there are 2 rules that every healer must follow. The first one is to solely focus on the tank. The tank is responsible for stunning the mobs and keeping the whole group alive, and if the tank is dead, then obviously everyone's going to die, or you're going to all have to invis and reset the mobs. That is a pain in the butt. A lot of times, some healers will be nice and heal the DPSs, but some healers just will not heal any DPSs at all because it is the DPS's sole responsibility to go invis so they don't get targeted by the mobs. as well as dodge any AoEs. Now, if the tank messes up and isn't able to keep aggro on their part so they don't use their Q ability, then yeah, you can kind of like help the DPSs out and everything. But for the most part, you need to focus on the tank. The second rule is to spam your invisibility. You don't want to be targeted by the mobs and instantly killed by them, so spam your invisibility or your shoes of tenacity, in other words. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the healer is doing during a rotation. Basically, the tank is going to go and get all the mobs and then stun them. You should not be doing anything at all during this time period, unless you're doing a big pull, which I'll talk about later. But as you can see, the tank goes, gets all the mobs, and then is about to stun all of them. This is the point when you're able to start healing. Now, the most common practice for this part of the pull is to go ahead and use your D. That is the Graveguard Helmet ability, and it's going to go ahead and restore 25% of the tank's health. This is very important to do as your first ability most of the times, just because if a tank messed up the pull and, is just having a rough pull, once they stun the mobs, they might already be down to half health. And if they got the timing wrong, then the mobs will instantly attack once they hit the ground, and that could instantly kill the tank. So by doing this, you can save their life many of times if they are having a rough pull, but it is just good practice to use a Graveguard helmet the second that they stun. After you use your Graveguard helmet, there's 3 different approaches that you can take. I came up with an if-then system to kind of help you figure out which approach to take. The first one being, if the tank has full health, then use the beam. The reason why you want to use the beam if the tank has full health is because the tank is in no imminent threat. You don't need to use any life-saving abilities on them, and they're not going to die instantly because they have full health. So basically, let's go into the beam a little bit. The beam starts off healing at, say, 100 health points, and then after a second it goes to 200, then it goes to 300, then it goes to 400, 500, 600, 700. It all depends on the tier and enchantment of your item, but the mobs are going to be stunned at this point because obviously the tank just stunned them, and the tank has full health, so it's not like you need to heal them urgently. So at this point, the beam will be healing them for like 100, 200, 300, at a time while the mobs are all stunned, and they're not going to need that healing like urgently and not need more than that, obviously because they're at full health. So then by the time the beam gets to around like 400, 500, 600 health per second, the mobs will be doing their main damage phase on the tank, which is when they need to get their 4 hits and stun the mobs. And you'll be healing the tank at like 400 health per second, then 500 health per second, then 600 health per second, which will be really good, and it'll keep the tank's health really high up there because you were able to build up the beam to high healing from starting it right when they had their max health. The second condition is if the tank is less than full health but more than half health, then use your Q and then your beam. The reason why you want to do this is because if the tank is around half health or a little bit more than that and you start using your beam, it won't necessarily heal the tank all the way up to their full health by the time the mobs start doing their damage phase or become unstunned and start attacking the tank. By using the Q and then the W, it should get the tank very close to full health. Then once you use the beam, it'll go ahead and get them to full health before the mobs become unstunned. Now, if you were to just use the beam, it slowly builds up, so there might be a chance that the tank does not get their full health back by the time the mobs become unstunned and start doing a damage phase or just attacking the tank in general. So it's very important to use your Q and then your beam. And finally, the last condition is the tank less than half health? If they are, then using your E, then your Q, and then W is probably the most effective, because when you use your E ability, if the tank is, or I guess just if the person that you're healing is under half health, they actually get healed for more than if you were to heal them when they were above half health by using the E. So it heals them a little bit extra. So by doing that, it's going to get you a little bit past half health, and then use your Q, which would get you pretty close to their full health, and then use your W to go ahead and use the beam, following the same concept that the tank should have around full health once the mobs start their attack phase, and the beam will be healing them a lot after you're decently into it. So at this point, you should have used your F, so your invis already. If not, then go ahead and use it. And then you can use your Royal Jacket banner ability to support your DPSs. It was unfortunate that the DPS and I used it both at the same time, but you want to use these ability or this ability to help out your team get their cooldowns. That guy didn't use invis, so the mob targeted them as you saw. So it's very important to use invis. So usually the mobs won't be killed in one rotation. I just had a very overpowered team in this clip. But you might have to do 2 rotations, and you basically just repeat the whole process. Most of the times for the second rotation, you won't have your Graveguard helmet regenerated by then. If you do, then it's great. You can kind of do the same thing. If not, then you kind of just follow the same decisions, but, you know, without the Graveguard helmet being used once they do the stun again. So I'm going to show you why it's important to use the Graveguard helmet when the tank stuns. And as you can see, the tank was struggling with this pull, and they end up just stunning before they actually are able to get all the mobs together. I used my Graveguard helmet, and if I didn't, then the rats could have easily killed him and taken him out if I were to have to wait for my Q ability to activate or my W beam to activate, and that's why you have to use your Graveguard helmet. So all that's left to cover is a big pull. I didn't have any clips on hand to show you guys like a gigantic pull and how to actually do it. I just have a clip of me showing the concept in a time that I really didn't need to do it, but I just kind of wanted to show the concept. And basically, all you have to do is use your Graveguard helmet and then your invisibility right away once the tank is pretty low on health and they're doing a big pull. So, say they collect a whole bunch of mobs and they get damaged while doing it. All you have to do is use your D and then your F instantly right after you use your D. And it'll give the tank a lot more health to continue going and get the mobs in position. And then they'll end up stunning. The only issue with big pulls is if the tank messes up and stuns the mobs, but does really bad timing, you're not able to use your Graveguard helmet because you used it in order to allow them to collect all those big mobs or aggro all those mobs onto them. So it's really not entirely your fault if you use your Graveguard helmet and then the second they touch down, they get instantly killed because their timing was off when they stunned. But let's go ahead and take a look at a clip of how to do a big pull. Like I said, this clip just demonstrates the concept of it. This was completely unnecessary. You didn't have to do this. But you use your Graveguard helmet and then use your invisibility right away, and then the tank is able to get their health while they're still able to go ahead and aggro more mobs onto them. That basically covers all the basic concepts of being the healer role in HCEs. I didn't go and really talk about the Iron Root at all, as well as the other offsets that you can use, but the reason being is, if you guys want, I can make more specific videos on those, but this is just a general purpose HCE healing guide to introduce people how to heal in HCEs and kind of what to expect and what the whole role of a healer is in an HCE. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and now you can hopefully get out there and start your HCE healing career. I know there are some nerfs and stuff coming to HCE, so this might discourage some people to do it. But, HCEs are overall really fun, and even with the nerf, they're still probably one of the most fun things you can do, in my opinion, besides ganking. But yeah, so hopefully this video helped you guys out. If it did, go ahead and comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll go ahead and catch you guys in the next video. Peace.